I've had a boyfriend ever since I remember. I even married a couple of them, actually. And my first boyfriend, he was 5 years old. He was called Henrik. And he would come to my house, and he would take my hand, and he would ruthlessly seduce me to go and steal apples in the gardens of the neighbor down the street. And ever since then, I've had a variety of relationships. But nevertheless, by my late teens and early 20s, I suffered from severe loneliness. So much so that I actually thought that I had the loneliness gene. I thought that loneliness was part of my DNA, and that the anxiety and the depression that I suffered from, and even thoughts about taking my own life, was a condition that I was doomed to have for the rest of my life. Little did I know then that it certainly didn't have to be that way, but it did take me more or less 20 more years to realize and discover what I today understand as the antidote to loneliness. So today we have a scary 35% of people between 18 and 24 reporting to suffer from chronic loneliness, which increases their risk of depression and anxiety and even suicide quite significantly. And we live in a time where loneliness has been documented to be as bad for your physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So we thought that technology could help us connect deeper, close the gap between us, make us feel closer to each other. But obviously, it's not working that well, that project. We do have AI-driven robots to keep our kids company. And we even have holograms that we can have as partners that we can marry if we really want to make it official. The production companies actually do issue marriage certificates for that. But here's the thing. We touch our phones more than we touch each other. We have people looking at dating apps for sex and intimacy, hoping perhaps to find that one and only. Over 300 million people are doing that. And trying to avoid this excruciating pain of rejection, we hide behind the screens. And that same excruciating pain of rejection is driving hundreds of thousands of young men all over the world to organize through the dark web to design vengeance killings towards the women they feel rejected by and the men they believe have access to these women, sometimes resulting in killings and mass shootings different places in the world. It is said that, well, a colleague of mine actually said that to me, that we spend our entire adult lives trying to answer the questions that we never got answered when we were children. And when I look back at my career, where I have methodically mapped the landscapes of sexuality, of intimacy, of sexuality within arts, photography, architecture, and of course within humans, I realized that perhaps, even though it looked on the outside that I was very preoccupied with sex, which I have also been, but the true question that has been driving my quest was perhaps this one. How can we heal loneliness? And when we look at the drastic situation of the world today, One could even go as far as to ask, is the lack of love so severe now that it's actually becoming a threat to our society? Well, today it is my hope that if we assume that part of the big problem is that loneliness and anxiety and depression is the problem, what then is the solution? I hope for today, or at least for the next 15 minutes, that you will open your mind and perhaps your heart to the idea that a new education in love could actually be the answer. So in Greenland, they have over 30 words for snow, which makes a lot of sense. Because when you have a country covered with snow and you're going from A to B, and your life and sometimes just ordinary safety depends on whether the snow is just fallen snow, soft, deep snow, or icy snow, then of course it makes sense to have a variety of words for that. In Sanskrit, one of the oldest languages of our civilization, there are 96 words for different experiences of love. Think about that. And the artist, Lise Poppers, she's created the Little Love Book, where she has coined 267 words in Sanskrit describing different experiences of love. And I love them. Love of friends, a word for that. Love of life, a word for that. Love of God, devotion to God. And it goes on, 260 words. Being fond of, dear to, an ocean of love. And this is kind of one I love, a word for being fit for exciting love. Are you fit for exciting love? I love that. And the fascinating thing about Sanskrit is that it's a language that describes inner states and ideas. So it is believed that when you say the words out loud, you actually activate the energy of the experience. So you transmit the energy of the experience that you're actually talking about. Think about that. So how would that be if we did that thing? We have in one of our universal languages today, we have the word love. And we use that quite a lot. I love my cat. I love my dad. I love my community. I love my daughter. I love my hot dog. I love sex. We all have that one word. But what if we raised our awareness and really started to be aware of the experience, the inner state that opened up when we danced, or when we floated in the ocean, or were swimming in some archipelago lake, or when we had that really fantastic smoothie, or listened to our favorite music? You know that. You know all those experiences that you have during the day where you would say, I just love this. And at least you can go and activate some of that just by perhaps listening to a piece of music, going and cuddle with your dog. So when I ask people about love, they usually go to romantic love. It's kind of the go-to. The roller coaster journey of ecstatic highs and painful lows, and the pain and the rejection and the longing that we all super willingly pay in the pursuit of this one and only. And that is our perception of ideal love, which is interesting because it's only about 200 years ago that the idea of romantic love became the number one ideal type of love. And it simply happened because in the Western world, people moved from their land and from their family heritage. They weren't dependent on that anymore, so they went into the cities and started making their own living so they could choose perhaps the most addictive type of love of all, which is romantic love. So we have taken this one type of love, romantic love, which Hollywood and songwriters and poets and today Netflix series keep on telling us the story again and again and again and again, that it's so much worth it, it's the ideal love. Yes, it hurts and it's horrible at times, but it's so much worth it. We get that story again and again and again. We've taken that part and made that to be our entire understanding of ideal love. And, well, we have a little space there for family and friends and the dog. But what if we were inspired from ancient cultures, from Sanskrit, for instance, just the language, and activated to have perhaps 96 different ways of experiencing love, and then had romantic love as one of them? Well, it's my proposal today that an education in love is about rebooting our understanding of love. And as abstract or grandiose it might sound, then I'd like to share a story with you on how I discovered what I today call the love hack for curing loneliness. A couple of months before the pandemic and everything locked down, I left my stilettos and the penthouse and the partying life of Copenhagen and went by myself to live in a cabin in the forest. That's not it. I just really, really like that picture. But it's kind of like that. And at that time, I had been investigating the landscapes of intimacy. And this is intimacy understood in this way. Intimate coming from intimus, meaning inmost or innermost. So I have been investigating how would it be if we actually understood intimacy as allowing other people to enter our inmost space. There has to be certain levels of trust, certain levels of connection, of course. But that was what I was investigating, and I was interviewing hundreds of people, did case studies with groups and individuals in Denmark. And I would ask them to describe the experiences of 4 different areas of intimacy. Physical intimacy, sexual and non-sexual, that would be cuddling, for instance. Emotional intimacy, I think we all can we all are familiar with that one. And then spiritual intimacy and digital intimacy. And it was especially the last 2 that really fascinated me. And of course, what better time in history to explore digital intimacy and spiritual intimacy than me being by myself in the forest and the entire world having locked down. So, a word on digital intimacy. It describes the relationships that we create when we create trust. How do we create trust and connection in our digital communication? And that is, of course, a whole different TED Talk in itself. But that is what it was about. Spiritual intimacy was described by the people I spoke to as both this unspoken relationship to another and an intimate relationship with something bigger than them. And that could be nature, it could be God, it could be the universe. So I was walking in the forest by myself and in the middle of the night. And I used to do that because obviously I would get this anxious thing in the middle of the night, and then when I started panicking, I would put on my sort of huge oversized red coveralls and really, really ugly but very, very comfortable clogs and my little headband, and I would start walking until the panic would leave my body. And here I am in the forest, and you have to imagine this is in Nordic, it's Scandinavia, pine trees, black, black, black. And I'm walking in the forest, and then I suddenly get to this area where this light from the full moon is shining brightly on the path I'm walking. And it's like catching the tops of the trees in the forest. And it's kind of horror movie scary, na-na-na sort of thing. But it's also magnificent and awe-inspiring and overwhelming and humbling, really. And I stood still and I closed my eyes and I started focusing on the energy in this imagined being of the trees and of the forest. And I practiced imagining taking this energy into my inmost space. And what happened in that moment was that I, for the first time in my life, experienced what I today understand as the antidote to loneliness. I realized that I was experiencing something that was a deep feeling of completion, a deep feeling of connection, to something indefinite. And I realized in that moment that the reason why I had practiced loneliness so much in my life was because I had never really learned how to practice deep connected love. So it's my hope that we will reboot our understanding of love and raise our awareness of the many experiences of love that we have every single day, and that we take that to our own lives and to our children's lives. So today I still live by myself in the forest. No boyfriends, no husbands, but I've never felt love so intensely. I've never loved more deeply. I've never felt more loved. And I even have my own apple trees. So the mystical poet Rumi said, "Love is the bridge between you and everything." So what do you say? Ready to build some bridges?